Hello and welcome to Rolling with Reviews. I'm Will, and with me as always is the one who rolls right over me,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a review of Port Royal, the dice game. If you're curious about our two-player perspective and accessibility, check out our other video, Rolling with Two, Port Royal, the dice game. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. In this roll and write reimagining of the Port Royal card game, you'll now use a dice to press your luck. To move forward in the game, you'll use ships to cross off spaces on your map sheet, hire useful crew on islands, and collect ship wheels for extra bonuses. There are 4 different maps to play with that increase in difficulty. Whoever gets 20 points first wins, unless someone can manage a sudden death victory. All right, so Will, why did we get this?
Well, we are fans of Port Royal.
Yes.
However, we were a little cautious because it had a map. And then we got advice from friends that recommended that we should really check it out.
And we basically bought it the day that they said, yeah, you should check this out. And we're like,
all right.
Okay, that's right.
I trust you.
So what do we like about the game?
There's a lot.
Well, we have close games. Even with what we discussed is it can feel pretty like you have bad luck in a 2-player experience.
The game moves forward
for
both players.
Exactly. So we always had close games, and we played it several times because we wanted to experience all There's 4 maps.
Yeah.
So the maps add this great variety and depth, and allows you to choose the difficulty and always keep it, fresh, so you don't get stuck in a certain pattern. And we always were close because of that sudden death concept.
Yeah, the sudden death concept is very interesting. After you get to a certain amount of
13?
points, 13, you can instantly win on your turn if you've put out enough of the meeples, the wheels and the ships. And that can be tough.
Oh, yeah. Like the first threshold is to get 7 out. And considering most of our games, I think the most we ever got out was 5 to win at the higher sudden death.
Yeah, so the higher your points get, the lower that threshold becomes.
Right.
And it does mean that even if somebody's really far ahead, well, maybe they're not thinking about doing the sudden death because that's just risky. Why would they risk all their points where someone else would really push? And we've had a couple of games where that was the deciding factor.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we only had one game that ended in points.
Yes, and there was one game where, weirdly, I could have won with points, but I was too focused on the sudden death that I failed, and I could have just gotten the points I needed to win.
I think that was the only game I won.
And that was the one you won with a sudden death, and then there was one that did I win with points?
Yes, there was one.
Yes, there was one, yeah. So 3 of the 4 games we played were sudden death ones. So it's a really neat concept that keeps everybody in the game, which is one of the big reasons why I don't like race to the finish games. Because if you don't have good catch-up mechanisms or be able to keep the game going forward fast enough where it doesn't matter if there's a widespread, like a 15-minute push your luck game, and a race to the finish is fine. It's 15 minutes, whatever. But if you're spending an hour playing, it can get pretty wide. So.
Yeah, and the window starts, like she said, at 13 points, and the end is 20 points.
Right.
So that window isn't very big, and a lot of the points are anywhere between 1 and...
I think you can get at most 3 for some of the bigger, tougher islands.
Really tough islands.
But the thing is, the game is actually really slow to start with. In fact, a lot of the beginning, you feel like you're moving forward, and then you're moving back, because you will get negative points. So when you get to 13, you're already halfway through the game, and or at least sometimes more, where it feels like once you get to 13, that's like the last bit of the game.
That's when you really need to start utilizing your crew's abilities.
Right.
Maybe start pulling out some of those ship wheels that you've picked up to do their special abilities, to just eke out that nice victory whichever way it is. But that window in there is very intriguing.
And the interesting part is, even when you fail to do something, you get a reward. I mean, you get penalties, don't get me wrong.
You get a skull.
You get a skull, which could result in negative points. But you also still get to mark things off on your map. And if you have the Jester, you get to mark more off your map. So it's really focused on keeping the game going forward, and no one is ever fully out. So they did a really good job of mitigating the bad luck of the dice, which some games don't,
Yeah.
which is why dice games are, well, kind of dicey sometimes.
Yes.
Also, just in general, the game feels familiar. Like, you know that without looking at the box, well, of course you look at the box, it's obvious this is a Port Royal game. So it's like the card game, but it's not trying to be the card game.
Yeah. You have concepts like, well, in the card game, when I have two ships of the same color, I bust. Same here. If you roll and have to put out the same color ship twice, you bust.
Right.
But both games also have ways to, well, if I have enough swords, I can fight the ship off. Same thing. If
Yep.
I have enough swords, I can fight the ship off. So you have those concepts that are still solidly a Port Royal game.
And you're going and hiring people, but instead of doing it through cards and money, you're marking off your map, and once you complete an island, then you've hired that person and they're part of your crew, and you mark it on the other side of your sheet to say, okay, now I've got this ability available to me.
It feels like you found the person.
Yeah,
and
it's more like you rescued them.
And it's always the last place you look, which is why it's the last X on every island.
That's true. That's true. So it feels a little less hiring and more of rescuing.
Yeah. And uses a lot of the concepts that are similar, like there is the Mademoiselle, or did they rename her?
No, I think, did they keep it? I don't remember.
Anyway, she in the card game makes everybody cheaper.
Yes.
But in this game, if you've found her, you go to all the islands you haven't completed and mark off one box. So in other words, she just tells you where she knows they're not.
Yes.
Like, well, I was here, here, and here, and I didn't see them at any of those places.
Right.
Like, well, that's information I can use.
They are not shopping at the bazaar.
Right. But it's still mechanically the same type of thing.
Right. So it feels really good, but different. So you're not just playing the dice version. It's not just the roll and write version. It is trying to be its own game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that covers what we like. There are a few things we don't like. The rules.
Yeah, because this is probably a translation issue, some of the phrasing and presentation of the words, it doesn't make sense, or they'll put information before you have any context, or the thing will have
mistakes.
errors.
Yeah. I really think the biggest problem probably doesn't have to do with the translation, because I imagine they kept the organization of concepts the exact same, and that's what's not good.
Right.
Because like you said, they'll talk about a thing and tell you this is what you can do, but you don't yet know why you want to do that thing or exactly how you gain that thing. So it'll say, when you're rolling, you can use a red ship wheel. Well, you don't yet know what a red ship wheel is. You don't know how to gain one yet.
Yeah.
But it's already telling you how to use it. So it's just teaching you concepts out of order. So that, unfortunately, was the most difficult part is to get through, is the order of the concepts. And then there were issues with phrasing and just outright in the rules, a trader is a merchant on your map. So they're the same thing, but they're called two different things.
Right. Which is doubly confusing because you have a wholesaler, which actually works like a merchant.
Right, just better.
Just better.
So
you're also wondering, like, well, is the trader the wholesale? No, the trader's the merchant because the icons match.
Right. And speaking of icons, the graphic design is not great. Everything is really tiny. There's poor contrast. The text is small. I understand in games picking up a card to be able to read it, but in this game I had to pick up the sheet to be able to read it. And that's just, they should have split the sheet into two separate sheets so everything could have been printed larger.
Yeah, we cover all that in our Rolling with Two video.
So if you want more details, check it out. And then for our specific situation, because Will can't see, I mean, on his turn he could roll the dice, but I'm putting all the meeples onto the board. I am marking his sheet for him. I am marking my sheet for me. So I am constantly doing something. I never get a break. And so there's just times where it's a bit overwhelming if you are the one person doing everything. So hopefully when you play, you can split it up, maybe put the meeple board, the shipboard or whatever it's called, between two people so that they can change off between who's doing what, especially if it's one person's turn, have the other person putting the meeples on and stuff, just so somebody can get a break, kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, I still really like the game, but that part of it, there were a few points where I was like, I need just to breathe for a moment. Okay, let's get back into it. All right, who this is for?
If you're a fan of the original Port Royal card game, this is a good game.
Yeah.
Because it's not trying to be the card game.
Exactly.
But it's going to be very familiar in certain ways, but it's its own game.
Exactly.
So that's one thing. Otherwise, family and casual gamers would be good with this, provided they can get through the rules.
Right. I think the best situation would be to have someone who knows how to play the game, can teach it. I mean, it's not a hard game to play once you know how to play it, but there are some nuances to the game. So if someone can teach casual gamers, family gamers how to play, I think they could really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go over our rating then.
So for our ratings, we each give 1d6 worth of ratings. 1 is low, 6 is high. We give a number, a reason why, add them together and see what it rolled for us. Sarah, what did Port Royal, the dice game, roll for you?
It rolled a 6. I absolutely enjoyed this. I feel like I win this more. I mean, it's not all about winning, but I feel like I'm always in the game. I never am fully out. I'm always having I mean, there were games where you were ahead for a lot of the time, but then I snuck the victory from you. And that is a very satisfying experience or feeling of it. And I just found it really engaging. But then I love roll and writes. And so there's very few roll and writes that I don't like. And actually the ones that I tend not to like are the more simple, not complicated ones. But anyways, 6 for this one. I just love how they combine the push your luck with the roll and write mechanisms, and that it is Port Royal, but not trying to be the card game.
Right. I give it a 5.
Yeah.
I still like the card game a bit better.
Yeah.
It just works with my brain better. And out of like 3 out of the 4 games we played, I had terrible rolling. And that soured me on the experience. Not that I blame the game, because I was still very close on all the games.
It was very close.
So mechanically, it's a brilliantly designed game. It's just that feeling dropped it for me. Just that I was like, how about we play the card game?
But you do often win the card game.
I do often win the card game. I think it just works with my brain better.
Yes.
So 11 out of 12, fantastic score for a game that we admittedly say have problems.
Yes.
But
exactly.
it overcomes them in ways sometimes inadvertently.
Right.
And still delivers a fantastic experience.
Agreed.
All right, Sarah.
Yes.
One thing that surprised me, and I wasn't expecting, considering we were just talking about card games and the dice game, is I didn't realize how much I felt like the map actually added to the Port Royal experience, because ships, moving around in the sea.
It really does. It gives you that physical movement aspect that is missing from the card game when it's supposed to be about a port and about ships coming in and out. But whereas the card game, it felt really like rooted in you are just at the port running maybe something at the port. Maybe you're running the port and you're dealing with the logistics of all the ships coming in and all the people that you're having to deal with. But here it has that more exploratory aspect of adventuring out.
Yeah, where am I creating the trade routes?
Right.
Well, what am I doing out here?
Yeah.
Not that I'm directly trading with anything. That I think we're doing more in the card game. This is, it just shifted the focus over to the sea, where a big part of the game actually lives.
Oddly, I normally don't like that. I normally don't like it when a game adds maps and exploration, because then there's a physical element that I don't like. But this one works so well because you're not shoehorned into, I mean, yes, there are only so many paths, but I don't know, it still feels like you have a lot of freedom to explore the map the way you want to explore it.
Yeah.
So
do I put my eggs in a basket and try to sit over here, where then I have to get a specific combination to unlock this path?
Right.
Those were interesting choices. Or do I just keep pushing and going through the path of least resistance, even though it might take me more X's to do so.
And what you just said triggered why I like this and not others is because you're just marking off X's. You can mark up to those blocks and it's now accessible to you. It's now an option. Whereas a lot of maps, you have a meeple. You are moving around and only where your meeple is adjacent to can you go. So even if there was a route that was blocked and you suddenly have the whatever you need to go through it, you can't because you're literally not there. So I think that's why this one works for me.
Yeah, because this is less of a this is where I am and this is movement. This is versus I've mapped out these routes.
Yes, exactly. So it works really well on that aspect of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've been rolling with reviews.
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.